For this project, you'll be needing a spatula, mixing bowl, alginate, water packet, adhesive, and impression trays. So first you start off by putting in the adhesive on the impression trays. Make sure you spread it in evenly, and so that with the alginate will be sticking to the tray. And now take your water pouch, add some water into the line where it says H2O, and then put it first in this mixing bowl. Make sure that you put in the water first, and then you follow it up with alginate. Uh, Pour it in and start mixing. Make sure you mix it around the walls and make it very even. You're aiming for a sour cream consistency. So, based on what it looks like, try to add a little bit water if needed. If not, and if you followed the steps properly, you wouldn't need to add any more water. And now start by loading up the impression tray. Make sure again, like you keep it in evenly. I like to think that I'm putting peanut butter on a sandwich, and yeah, just make sure it's all even, all the crevices and surfaces are covered. And then as you can see in the video, I'm making it, spreading it with the spatula and running my finger over if needed, and then yeah, just pushing it in through to our typodont. Make sure that the interior is also covering the typodont, because oftentimes that is the area that is missed. Take out the alginate impression. Here I'm adding in a boxing wax strip. It is very important for us to know that we do not distort the alginate or use any rubber bands. This is because it will deform the cast when it comes out.
Now we're gonna be pouring up the cast with stone. So we're gonna take yellow stone from this part of the wet lab, put it inside, and we already had a bit of water in our bowl to start, and so we're gonna mix that up nice. And to get a good consistency, we're gonna wanna make sure the water level is correct. And so you don't want it too runny, but you also don't want it too dry. So try to get like a sour cream consistency for this one. And so here in the video, we're mixing the stone. Adding a little bit more just to make sure it's thick enough. Make sure it's thoroughly mixed, no bubbles or still dry stone in there. And now we're going to use this dental vibrator with our impression, and this is going to ensure we don't have bubbles in our stone pour up. And so you'll see we're kind of having it at an angle, pouring it in, and the vibrations will let that stone drip in, and you're going to see some bubbles come out from that. And so as we do that layer where we're getting the occlusal, we're going to really want to be careful and make sure those bubbles are getting out of there. So you can see the bubbles rising from the vibration. And at this point, since we got all the teeth in at this point, we can just load that puppy up and make sure it's nice and thick so we have plenty to work with when we are mounting. And so just trying to make a nice base so we have something easy to work with. We use some paper towels to try to be clean in the lab, not to make too big of a mess. And then once that sets, you're going to see the cast. And so now we're going to be trimming it. And make sure not to take your cast out if it's going to be still warm. And now we're going to be smoothing it out. When you're using this trimmer, make sure don't wear gloves. It's not good to be wearing gloves because they could rip if you touch it like at a weird angle. So just go in with your hands. Make sure that you're adding water to the stone to make sure it cuts easily. The machine naturally will add some water in, but it's always a good idea as well if you need to spray it with some water. And so we're just gonna get all the edges trimmed in nicely, get the base flat by pushing it up against it. Make sure the cast is always touching that bottom block so it doesn't slip from your hand because you could damage the teeth that way. And see, we're adding some water, getting it nice and wet. And now we have a pretty nice cast to work with. One last thing we should do is, obviously there's some bubbles that we couldn't get out with the vibrator. So we're going to go in with the carver and just clean up those spots. Especially it's important on the occlusal, so as if you're using this to make any um, crown and bridge appliances or any denture appliances, it's always good to make sure the occlusion is as accurate as possible. So we're going to clean up those spots, and you're going to see right here what a nice and clean stone cast looks like. And so now the final step before we're going to be mounting is going to be adding these notches in. And so this is going to help us with our white stone make sure it mounts to our articulator. So just use your straight handpiece and go ahead and create these notches at your bench. There's also going to be a little vacuum that you can use to kind of control that smoke, but it should be okay. Really quick little procedure to do here, but an important step nonetheless.
Here's the part we've been waiting for. So this is where you will be mounting the cast that you have made. First, start off with a jig, which will be the mandibular, which is because we'll be first mounting the maxillary cast. Lock in the jig to your articulator and then place a mounting cookie up top at the maxillary position. Take out some rubber bands from the wet lab and place the maxillary cast over the mandibular jig in occlusion. Make sure that the cast does stay in occlusion, which is why we will be using rubber bands so that it makes it easier for us when we're mounting and the cast doesn't fall off. Now, take some white plaster stone from the wet lab and place it into a mixing bowl which already has some water. As you can see, we have a lot of water inside, so we're trying to make sure that we still get that same sour cream like consistency for this plaster. So now we're adding a little bit more plaster, mixing it in, and we're getting very close to that point where we can start adding it to the articulator. So here we can see, like, try to make sure that it's all evenly spread and evenly mixed. Now we're going to take the material, place it on our mounting cookie and our cast, and just keep placing it until when you think you have enough. Now here's an example that we do not have enough, so we'll be adding more to the mounting cookie and also adding more to the cast, so that way it all looks even from the sides, the back, and the interior portion. So it looks like we're getting close to that level right now. Try it again. Okay, it looks like we have enough. So now maybe you could wet your finger and place it all along the plaster. Make sure you get a smooth shape. This way it'll be easy for us to sand later on, which we'll be going over in the video as well. But for now, just make sure that you don't leave any crevices open or any surfaces exposed. So here you can see that we're dipping our finger in water and just shaping it. Take your time with it, but be relatively fast so that you do not have to add additional layers, because that will make your final product look more rough. We're doing the same thing for the mandibular cast as well. Now that we have our maxillary mounted already, just place the articulator in the position, place the rubber bands, and this feels a little weird. The positioning is a little bit awkward. However, you'll be placing the articulator almost upside down in a way. But first, make sure the occlusion is good. That's the most important thing because it will throw off the whole process if it's not. So now repeat the same process. Add some water, add mounting plaster within, and just mix it. And you'll be placing the plaster on the mounting cookie and the cast itself later. So here we're mixing the plaster, having it be fully even, not too watery, not too hard. Place it in. Spatula is a great way. You could always place it in with spatula to make it easy and even. Right, so adding in a little bit more material. Alright, it's all in. Now I'm just dabbing my finger in water and just shaping it a little bit more. You could use spatula if you prefer that too. Personally, I feel like there are parts where it's hard to get in through the spatula, so I just keep a Dixie cup with some water next to me and just shape it as much as I can. Now is when you'll be sanding the rough product that we have. Take a sandpaper, have some water running over your cast, and just make sure that you're smoothing it underwater. You have to put in a little bit of a force, but this will allow for that smooth finish that you're looking for, and even clinically, it'll make the case presentation look so much nicer. So make sure you're doing this step and not ignoring it. Here you can see it's smooth here on this side, and the other side is rough.
And when you're all done, make sure to put your articulator under the water, clean it up, and here's our final product.